All right, welcome to the Imperfectly Inspirational Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bowman. We're so glad to have you tuning in this week. And this week's episode is a special one. We have been requested to do something in the book of Revelation. And, I said to this individual, I said, no, because that's a hard subject. There's a lot of things that we really don't know, and a lot of it is speculation, but when I sat down and I thought about it, I found a chapter that I think really works well with the past studies that we just did in the book of Jude. So if you are listening to this episode, I highly encourage you to look at the previous two episodes in the book of Jude, and we're going to connect these two. And we're going to see what Revelation chapter 13 and Jude kind of have in common, and what we as Christians need to do. So in a lot of ways, I'm really glad that I got this request because I think this works out really well. But I will say beforehand, I'm not a scholar in, biblical theology, and in the sense of Revelation, I did the studying that I could do and found out the information that I believe was to be as right as I could get it. So if any of this doesn't set right with you, I apologize. I'm not claiming to set this as full official word. Some of the things I do believe are pretty correct, but some of the things will be opinions, and I'll let you know that. And but all in all, let's go ahead and dive into this book of Revelation and see what we can figure out together this week. But Revelation chapter 13, I want us to go in and see what we have about these two different type of beasts. And we're going to start here in verse 1 and read about this first beast. It says, Revelation 13, verse 1 says, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, and with 10 diadems on its horns, and blasphemous names on its head. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, and its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power, and his throne, and his great authority. One of his heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it? And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemous against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. It was also allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation, and all who dwell on the earth will worship it. Everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword, he must be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints." So you see mentioned in this first part of the beast, the dragon. Well, in the previous chapter, chapter 12, the dragon is Satan. Now, ultimately, this beast here is going to be the Antichrist. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're any age, I don't care if you're 5 or 500, you have seen multiple Antichrists come into this earth already based on conspiracy theories. I know many people throughout the years that I could name that have been considered the Antichrist, and we're all still here. Ultimately, we don't know. It says we will not know the hour or the day. This is going to be God's call. But we can see that this beast, this Antichrist, the 7 horns on its head are covered the diadems, basically crowns. This is going to be somebody that has power. It's not going to be Billy Bob sitting there on his farm and going to come up and just randomly start making a name for himself. That's not how this is going to go. This is going to be somebody who is in power, who has really the world at their fingertips. And that's one thing that we can say pretty much specifically about the Antichrist is that they are going to be someone in power, a political reigning more than likely, but somebody who has a lot of power. And that's where this beast comes into play. But this next beast, let's go ahead and read down. Verse 11 says, "Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. It was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak, and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So, this beast here kind of has this lamb voice, very soft-spoken, very easy and loving, probably, one of those soft voices that you hear on TV, right? But we see it only has two horns. There's no crown. So this beast, this person that is going to come on the scene is going to be somebody very soft, very easy to deal with, very loving, but is going to have a lot of deception in their heart, and is going to have this actions of the dragon, right? It's going to, at the front, seem very innocent and loving, but behind the scenes is going to have a lot of negative things going on, per se. And I want to point out something. We know that Satan loves to imitate God. We know that Satan does not have the power to be God, but I want us to look at this, I'll say, anti-trinity that Satan has set up here. We have the dragon, who is Satan himself. Then we have the first beast, which is the Antichrist. And then we have this second beast here, which we're going to call the anti-Holy Spirit, because this second beast here is the one that ultimately guides people and puts their focus onto the actual Antichrist himself. And then we also see the Antichrist has the mark that looks like a mortal wound that should have been healed, and they're going to worship this Antichrist over that. So Satan has done a lot of things to mimic God, but we all know in the end that Satan does not have the ability to conquer. Only God has that ability. Satan can only deceive. So as we look at this and we see these things that are written, the Antichrist, the anti-Holy Spirit, the fact that the whole world is going to worship and be put kind of in awe at this. And we even see for the second beast, it creates an image. We've seen that before in Daniel with Nebuchadnezzar creating an image that everybody needs to bow down and worship. They say history repeats itself, or we're going to see that again. And the question is, where do we fall in all this? Where does this put us? Well, there's many different thought processes. There's Christians that, believe in the pre-tribulation rapture, that we're not going to be here for any of it. There's some that believe that we'll be gone in the middle of it. And then there's some that believe that, we're going to be here till toward the end. And, that's a smaller number of people. But either way, whether you believe prior, middle, or end, I want to put some closure to our hearts and some thought processes to our brains, because I'm not here to decipher whether or not we're going to be here through this stuff or whether we're not. I'm here to talk about the most important thing, and that thing is Jesus. See, the book of Revelation gives us a very important thing to look out for. It gives us an understanding of some things that may happen toward the end of times, and some things to kind of watch out for. Just like in the book of Jude, we see things that we should look out for within the church and people who are going to deceive us. right? Book of Revelation chapter 13 is showing, look out for these things of people who are going to deceive. These are going to be blasphemous things, the same thing that we see in Jude, blasphemous things. So it is going to be very difficult to spot the Antichrist with a lens of everybody is the Antichrist. But what it's easy to do is focus on Jesus. See, what happens is when we start looking into the future, something that hasn't happened yet, we start focusing on what could happen. I don't know about you, but I've had many times where I've sat there and focused on a problem in my life that might have been really small, but I've made this problem out to be so big and so messed up. And I've taken so many things and put them into different perspectives of what if this happens? What if that happens? How do I react this way? How do I react that way? And all I did was create a vacuum really around me and suck myself out of reality and put myself into a situation that did not exist yet. And instead of being focused on what was going on at the very moment, I put myself into being focused on something that hadn't happened yet. Now, is it important to look into the future and have goals and ambitions or see possibilities of things happening and, maybe taking preventative measures? Absolutely. But is it worth it to be so focused on the future that we lose sight of now? Absolutely not. And when we start focusing on, okay, are we going to be here during the rapture? Are we not going to be here during the during the end of times? Are we not going to be here? Are we go? Whatever all these things are, if you start focusing fully on that and thinking every person is the Antichrist, you lose sight of right now and what God is doing in your life and the things that God is doing in this world. See, with the things of these beasts, I can tell you one thing that I feel very confident in saying. When the end of time is here, you're going to know it. When the mark of the beast is here, you're going to know it. And how are you going to know that when the mark of the beast is here? Because, well, in chapter 14, it tells you there's going to be angels flying around telling you. So I'll be honest with you, if you are not seeing angels, then there's no mark of the beast. Because we see right here, if you go down to verse number 9, it says in chapter 14, and another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and its image and receives a mark on his forehead or hand, he also will drink the wine of God's wrath. Listen, if you don't see angels following you around saying don't do that, that is not the mark of the beast. See, we have been living in the last days since Jesus transcended into heaven. Since that very moment, it has been the last days of this earth. And what we are called to do as Christians is to focus on his return by getting as many people there as we can. Not that we could do it on our own authority, but by following God's example, by following the word that he has given us, that we could lead people to Christ through our fruitfulness, and that we could spread the word, that we could give charitable works and love and all these things that are required of us as Christians to do. Remember, none of these things get us to heaven. It is our salvation alone, but we are called as saints to perform certain duties. And if we perform those duties correctly, the end of the world don't matter because we're doing what we're supposed to be doing now. And, we get caught up, and I remember the COVID vaccine, was, that's the mark of the beast. They're trying to do things. No, it wasn't. I don't care what you think about it. That was not the mark of the beast. Even if they want to put a chip in your hand, that's not the mark of the beast until there's angels flying around saying whether we're raptured or not beforehand. I don't know. But if there's angels flying around telling you not to take it, then don't take it. Throughout history, we have seen persecution of Christians. Throughout history, we have seen, look at the Holocaust. They were numbered. They had numbers put on them. They were put to death because they were Jewish. We have seen Christian persecution. Christians have been put to death. They're being put to death right now in many third world countries that are against Christianity. This happens. It is sad. But this doesn't change the fact that this stuff still happens, and dictators have rose to power, and they have fallen out of power. And, democracy has came in and changed, and then other dictators will come in and take over, and freedoms will get restricted. These are things that happen in life. And I want to tell you right now, if you have not stood up to anybody, if you have not stood up to that false teacher in your church, if you have not stood up to the immoral people doing things, if you have not taken a stand to anything that is anti-God right now, heaven help me, you're not going to take a stand when the Antichrist gets up there when that time comes. So why keep looking for it if you're not going to do it? As Christians, we're called to fight the good fight. Stand up for what is right. Stand up for truth. Stand up for godliness. And I can tell you right now, if you're not going to do it while the Antichrist is not here, while this big power is being unleashed on earth, you're not going to do it at that time. So quit focusing on it. It is our call as Christians, and this is the connection between Jude and the book of Revelation. We see that there are going to be bad things happening. They're going to happen. One is going to be toward the end of times, and one is just going to be bad things. False teachers, people coming in wolves and sheep's clothing and trying to trick and deceive us. We're going to see that again at the end of times, but we're going to really know when the end of times is here. But the same thing stays steady throughout history, is that we must keep focused on the Word of God, look straight ahead at Jesus Christ, and understand that if we are saved, we're going to heaven no matter what. Even if we die of persecution, we get taken up in the rapture, or we just die in our sleep, no matter what, we're going to go to heaven one day, and our call is to follow the Word and be knowledgeable and fight the good fight. So, what are you going to do today? Are you going to focus and worry about what might be, what could possibly be the end of the world? Or are you going to focus on what is going on today and how God is affecting you today and the good things He's doing in your life and how you could fight the good fight and be the person you're supposed to be today instead of looking forward to something that we aren't really sure yet? As I said before, it's important to look to the future. It's important to understand what may come, but to put such a focus on it in a fight that could divide Christians, I find it unnecessary when we can't focus fully right now. Let's change our mindset and focus on today and help make this world a better place by showing the love of God, pushing the Word of God, and fighting the good fight. But folks, I love each and every one of you, and I hope that this message has been helpful. And if you like what you heard, don't be ashamed to share it with somebody. Folks, y'all enjoy and have a wonderful rest of your week.